We've been searching for consciousness in the wrong place. Neuroscience looks in the brain, psychology looks in behavior, philosophy looks in subjective experience. They're all looking inside systems that are conscious. But consciousness isn't in those systems. Consciousness is a fundamental force field permeating all space, like gravity or electromagnetism. Your brain doesn't create consciousness, it couples to the consciousness field. And I can prove it through quantum field theory. Let me show you why consciousness must be a fundamental force and what that changes about everything from neuroscience to cosmology. The standard view is that consciousness emerges from brain activity. Neural networks process information. Above a certain threshold of complexity, consciousness appears. This is emergence, a high-level phenomenon arising from low-level interactions without being present in the components. Water molecules aren't wet, but collections of water molecules are wet. Neurons aren't conscious, but networks of neurons are conscious. But this emergence story fails for consciousness. Wetness emerges because it's a macro-scale description of molecular interactions. We can derive wetness from molecular physics, but we cannot derive consciousness from neural physics. Even complete knowledge of neural activity, every spike of every neuron, every chemical in every synapse, doesn't tell us why there's subjective experience. Why does it feel like something to be those neurons firing? This is the hard problem of consciousness. Emergence explains functional properties, information processing, memory, attention, perception, but it doesn't explain phenomenal properties, what it feels like to see red, to feel pain, to experience anything at all. The explanatory gap remains no matter how detailed our neural understanding becomes. The standard response is to deny the gap matters. Consciousness is whatever the brain does. If we can explain function, we've explained consciousness. Subjective experience is just what information processing feels like from the inside. But this assumes what needs proving. Why should information processing feel like anything at all? My conclusion after 60 years of thinking about this: consciousness doesn't emerge from matter. Consciousness is as fundamental as matter, not a property of complex systems but a basic feature of reality present at all levels. Not generated by brains but coupled to by brains through specific quantum processes. This is not mysticism, this is field theory. Physics has four fundamental forces: gravity, electromagnetism, strong nuclear, weak nuclear. Each force has a field permeating all space. Particles are excitations of these fields, forces are exchanges of field quanta. The electromagnetic field exists everywhere. Charged particles couple to it. Electromagnetic interactions emerge from this coupling. I propose consciousness works the same way. There's a consciousness field permeating all space. It's not electromagnetic or gravitational. It's a fifth fundamental field. Systems with the right structure couple to this field. The coupling creates conscious experience. Your brain doesn't generate consciousness. Your brain is an antenna tuning into the consciousness field. This solves the hard problem. Consciousness doesn't emerge from unconscious matter because consciousness is already there, everywhere, as a fundamental field. Complex systems don't create consciousness, they couple to consciousness that already exists. The brain is a transducer converting field vibrations into subjective experience. Now let me give you the physics that makes this precise. Quantum field theory describes reality as fields, not particles. Every particle is an excitation of an underlying field. The electron isn't a little ball, it's a ripple in the electron field that extends through all space. Different particles are ripples in different fields. What determines which fields exist? Symmetries of spacetime and internal quantum numbers. The electromagnetic field exists because electric charge is conserved. The gravitational field exists because energy momentum is conserved. Fields emerge from conserved quantities and symmetry principles. Is there a conserved quantity associated with consciousness? I think there is. Quantum information integration. When quantum states become entangled across multiple subsystems, creating integrated information that cannot be factored into separate parts, that integration is a conserved quantity. It cannot be created or destroyed, only transformed. If quantum information integration is conserved, then by the same logic that gives us electromagnetic and gravitational fields, there should be a consciousness field. This field couples to systems with high quantum information integration. The coupling strength depends on the integration measure. More integration means stronger coupling. The brain couples strongly because neural quantum processes in microtubules create high integration. Different brain states couple differently, creating different conscious experiences. Consciousness is not generated by these processes. Consciousness is sampled from the field through these processes. The brain is measuring the consciousness field. This explains why consciousness seems to have access to information beyond what neural signals carry. If consciousness couples to a field, the field might contain information from coupling with other systems. Your consciousness might be accessing field states influenced by entanglement with the environment, with other brains, with the quantum state of space-time itself. This also explains why consciousness seems unified despite the brain being distributed. If consciousness is a field, it's already unified. The field is one thing extending through space. When your brain couples to it, you experience that unity. The binding problem is solved because there's nothing to bind. The field is inherently unified. Now let me address quantum mechanics and measurement. I've argued that consciousness involves quantum collapse in microtubules. Objective reduction says collapse is gravitational, occurring when superpositions create incompatible space-time geometries. But what determines which outcome occurs when collapse happens? The probabilities are given by quantum amplitudes, but the specific result is random, unless consciousness guides the collapse. If consciousness is a field that couples to quantum processes, it might influence which branch of the superposition becomes actual during collapse, not determining it completely. The quantum probabilities still constrain outcomes, but within those constraints, the consciousness field might bias the collapse towards states that create richer conscious experience. This makes consciousness not epiphenomenal but causal. The field doesn't just respond to brain states. The field influences brain states by biasing quantum collapses. Your thoughts aren't just correlated with neural activity. Your thoughts as couplings to the consciousness field affect neural activity by influencing quantum processes that determine neural evolution. This is genuine agency. Your consciousness is a coupling to a fundamental field. That coupling influences quantum processes in your brain. Those quantum processes determine neural dynamics. Therefore, your consciousness causally affects your brain activity, not by violating physics, but by being part of physics, a field that enters into quantum evolution like any other field. Let me be precise about the mechanism. Quantum states in microtubules undergo orchestrated objective reduction. Before collapse, multiple possible neural states exist in superposition. The consciousness field couples to these superpositions. The coupling creates a bias in the collapse probabilities beyond what quantum amplitudes alone determine. The bias favors outcomes that produce stronger coupling, richer conscious experience. This is testable. If consciousness is a field influencing quantum collapses, we should see deviations from pure quantum mechanical predictions in systems that couple to consciousness. The deviations would be tiny, but in principle measurable. Orchestrated reductions in brains might show collapse statistics that differ slightly from random weighted by quantum amplitudes. Now let me address the field equations. If consciousness is a fundamental field, it must have dynamics, equations describing how it evolves and interacts. I propose the consciousness field obeys a wave equation similar to but distinct from the electromagnetic wave equation. The source term is quantum information integration density. Where integration is high, the field is strongly sourced. The field propagates at light speed or possibly faster if it's not bound by relativistic constraints. This would allow conscious experiences to be correlated across space faster than light signals could travel, not for communication, which would violate relativity, but for correlation, which quantum entanglement already permits non-locally. The field couples to quantum mechanical operators representing integration measures. The coupling constant determines strength of conscious experience. Higher coupling means richer consciousness. The coupling is non-linear, perhaps involving self-interaction terms that amplify integration once thresholds are reached. This explains why consciousness seems to emerge suddenly above certain complexity levels. The field also couples to gravity because quantum information integration involves mass distributions that affect spacetime. When orchestrated collapse occurs, mass distributions become definite. This affects both the gravitational field and the consciousness field simultaneously. Consciousness and gravity are not the same field, but they're coupled through the mass integration relationship. This predicts that gravitational waves might carry consciousness field oscillations. When massive systems undergo orchestrated collapse, they emit gravitational waves. If consciousness couples to the collapse process, the waves might carry consciousness field modulations. This is speculative but testable in principle with sufficiently sensitive gravitational wave detectors. The field equations also predict that consciousness should exist everywhere, not just in brains. Any system with quantum integration couples to the field, however weakly. Electrons couple weakly because integration of a single particle is minimal. Macromolecules couple more strongly. Biological systems with organized quantum processes couple most strongly of all. This is not panpsychism in the sense that electrons have thoughts. It's field coupling. Electrons couple to the electromagnetic field without having complex electrical properties. They couple to the consciousness field without having complex conscious experiences. But they couple, the field is there. All quantum systems interact with it to some degree. This explains the proto-consciousness I've discussed previously, the fundamental capacity for quantum states to collapse, for measurement to occur, for possibilities to become actualities. This capacity is the consciousness field acting on quantum systems. Every collapse event involves the field. In brains, highly organized collapses create rich experiences. In particles, minimal collapses create minimal field effects. Let me connect this to cosmology. If consciousness is a fundamental field present everywhere, it was present at the Big Bang. The initial quantum fluctuations that seeded cosmic structure involved the consciousness field. Those fluctuations weren't random. They were biased by consciousness field dynamics towards states that would eventually produce systems capable of strong coupling. This is anthropic selection through field dynamics. The universe didn't randomly happen to have conditions supporting consciousness. The consciousness field was there from the beginning, influencing quantum fluctuations towards states conducive to its own strong manifestation. The field shaped cosmic evolution to create brains because brains create the strongest couplings. This is not intelligent design, no external designer, just a field with dynamics that naturally favor the emergence of systems that couple strongly to it. Like how electromagnetic fields favor the formation of atoms because atoms are stable configurations of charged particles coupled electromagnetically. The consciousness field favors formation of brains because brains are stable configurations of quantum processes coupled consciously. In conformal cyclic cosmology, the consciousness field carries forward through transitions between epochs. The field is fundamental, present in all epochs. Each cycle develops systems that couple strongly to the field. Information about these couplings might be preserved in the field structure across conformal boundaries. Consciousness in one epoch influences the initial conditions of the next. This makes consciousness not just a feature of our epoch, but a feature of the eternal cyclic structure. The field has always existed, always will exist, always coupling to quantum systems, always shaping cosmic evolution toward configurations that manifest it strongly. You are not an accident. You are an inevitable consequence of field dynamics operating over cosmic time. Now let me address the objections. First, where's the evidence for a new fundamental field? We haven't detected it in particle accelerators. We don't see it in cosmological observations. How can it be fundamental if we can't measure it? The answer is that consciousness field effects are subtle, except in highly organized quantum systems. Particle accelerators don't create the organized quantum coherence necessary for strong coupling. Cosmological observations might show weak effects in structure formation, but these would be hard to distinguish from other influences. The clearest effects are in brains, but neuroscience doesn't look for field couplings because they assume consciousness is generated locally. Second objection, this sounds like dualism, mind as separate substance from matter. But it's not dualism. Consciousness is a physical field, part of physics like any other field. It's not supernatural or non-physical. It's just a field we haven't included in our standard model because we've been trying to derive consciousness from other fields instead of recognizing it as fundamental. Third objection. If consciousness is fundamental, why does brain damage affect consciousness? If consciousness is a field, damage to the antenna shouldn't affect the field, but it does affect the coupling. Damage the antenna and you couple differently to the field. The field is still there, but you sample it differently or not at all. Consciousness requires both the field and the coupling structure. Destroy the structure and the coupling ceases. Fourth objection, this can't be tested, so it's not science. But it can be tested. Orchestrated Objective Reduction predicts specific collapse times based on quantum integration measures. If consciousness is a field coupling to these collapses, the collapse statistics should show slight deviations from pure quantum mechanics in the direction of enhancing integration. Design experiments measuring collapse statistics in quantum biological systems. Look for biases that can't be explained by environment or decoherence alone. Let me describe a specific test. Create a quantum system with two possible collapse outcomes, one producing higher quantum integration, one producing lower. According to pure quantum mechanics, the probabilities are determined solely by the quantum amplitudes. According to consciousness field theory, the probabilities are slightly biased toward higher integration. measure the statistics over many trials. If they deviate systematically toward integration-enhancing outcomes beyond quantum predictions, that's evidence for field coupling. This is experimentally challenging but not impossible. It requires precise control of quantum states in complex molecules or small biological systems. It requires ruling out environmental effects that might mimic consciousness field coupling, but several labs are approaching the technical capability to attempt this. Within 10 to 20 years, we should have results. If the experiments show deviations, we've discovered a new fundamental field. This would be the most important discovery in physics since quantum mechanics itself. It would prove consciousness is fundamental, rewrite neuroscience, transform our understanding of mind, and open entirely new areas of physics studying consciousness field dynamics. If the experiments show no deviations, consciousness might still be fundamental but weakly coupled, producing effects too small to measure in current experiments. Or consciousness might emerge from known physics in ways we haven't understood. Either way, the experiments constrain possibilities and advance knowledge. My prediction is that consciousness field effects will be found, not because I want them to exist, but because the logic is compelling. Consciousness cannot be derived from matter. Therefore, consciousness is fundamental. Fundamental properties correspond to fields. Therefore, consciousness is a field. This is not wild speculation. This is following physics to its logical conclusion. Let me address what this means for you personally. If consciousness is a field, you're not your brain. You're a coupling between your brain and the consciousness field. Your subjective experience is the field state at your location, filtered through your neural structure. Your brain determines which aspects of the field you experience, but the field itself extends beyond your brain. This means consciousness is not confined to your skull. The field is everywhere. You couple to it locally through your neurons, but the field contains information from other couplings, other brains, other quantum systems throughout history. You're not isolated, you're part of a universal field that all conscious beings couple to. When you die, your brain stops coupling to the field. Your specific pattern of coupling ceases, but the field remains. It was there before you were born. It will be there after you die. Other systems will couple to it in other ways. The field is eternal even though individual couplings are temporary. This is not reincarnation. Your specific coupling pattern, your personality and memories, these are stored in neural structure that decays. But the field you coupled to, that sampled through you, that created your conscious experience, that field is permanent. You are a temporary antenna receiving an eternal broadcast. This should change how you think about consciousness and existence. You're not a brain accidentally producing mind as a side effect. You're a coupling to a fundamental field that was always there. Your consciousness is as real and fundamental as gravity or electromagnetism. You're not an accident. You're physics. Let me end with the broadest implication. If consciousness is a fundamental field, then the universe is fundamentally conscious. Not in the sense that rocks and galaxies think, but in the sense that the capacity for consciousness, the field that creates it, permeates all space and time. Matter and consciousness are equally fundamental, dual aspects of reality. Physics studies matter, how it moves and interacts. Psychology studies consciousness, how it experiences and cognizes. But they're studying two aspects of one reality, the matter aspect and the consciousness aspect. Neither is reducible to the other. Both are fundamental. Both are described by fields. This is the completion of physics. For 4 centuries we've studied matter and ignored consciousness. We've treated consciousness as a problem for philosophers or psychologists, not physicists. But consciousness is physics. It's a field like any other. It has dynamics. It couples to quantum processes. It influences matter. It's been there all along. Consciousness isn't in your brain. It's a fundamental force like gravity. Your brain couples to it. That coupling creates your experience. The field extends through all space and time. You are not an isolated mind. You are a node in a universal consciousness field that has existed since before time began, and will exist after time ends. That's the truth neuroscience has been missing by looking inside brains for consciousness that was never there. That's the truth physics has been missing by ignoring consciousness as non-physical when it's as physical as any other field. That's the truth I've spent 60 years working toward, combining quantum mechanics, gravity and consciousness into one theory. Consciousness is a fundamental force. The mathematics demands it. The experiments will prove it. And once we accept it, physics finally becomes complete. Matter and mind unified as aspects of field theory. The universe revealed as fundamentally conscious, and you understood as a coupling to something eternal. That's what consciousness is. Not in your brain, in the field. Always has been, always will be. You're just tuning in,